family, you are welcome back to my channel. How are you doing today? Okay, so I actually realized that in the last video I forgot to introduce myself. I think it was a combination of I was indeed very tired, but I had to get that video done because I had said that I was going to release a video every Tuesday and Friday, even though that came out on Wednesday, because by the time I finished recording on Tuesday, I didn't have enough time to, I was just fagged out. But I'm glad it still came out on Wednesday. And I watched it back and I said, Tony, you totally forgot to introduce yourself. So I'm going to introduce myself today the way that I like to say my name. My channel is called TY's Thoughts. My name is Oluwatoyin. That is the full name, which means God is worthy to be praised. Toyin for short, so many people call me Toyin, but TY for shorter, and some people call me TY as well, which is where we get the name TY's Thoughts from. And you're welcome back to another episode where I will be talking about my lessons on this journey of life and living. And in today's episode, I'm going to be bringing out, as you can see the title is How Do You See Life? How do you see life? And I'm going to be bringing out the lessons from today's video straight from the Bible. It's still a life teaching, but I was reading something in the Bible which I was studying something some days ago, and a particular couple of verses caught my attention, and I was studying something another day and another set of verses caught my attention, and between these two verses I just started to think about life and living again, and how the way that our minds are shaped, or the way the experiences of our lives cause us to see life. And you know that there is this saying that says that the way we see life is not the way it is. The way that we see life is the way we are. I will say that again. The way that you and I see life is not necessarily how it is. The way that we see life is the way that we are. Now, what does that mean? You can look at a situation, observe a situation, hear something that was said to somebody, be having a conversation with someone. The person is trying to tell you something in a certain way or communicating a certain thought. Now, you might be hearing what the person is saying, but your interpretation of that conversation is based on the way that you are, is based on how you think, is based on how your mind is shaped, is based on the experiences of your life, maybe even based on your career. Somebody might be talking about, the number 1,000. Someone who is just naturally wired to think about money is thinking you're saying $1,000. Somebody else might be thinking 1,000 cows. It just happens in different ways. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's the same way, they can say, think about a yellow car. Yellow car, yellow car, yellow car, yellow car. You can ask someone, what yellow car did you see in your mind? And someone says a Honda. And somebody says, a yellow Benz. It's just the way that we are wired. So in as much as we said yellow car, there is a different interpretation of what yellow car means to each and every one of us, because already there are different filters in our minds that shape the way we think. And those filters can come from all sorts of things: experience, background, situations, your present condition at that point in time. And why do I think this conversation is important? Because if we understand the way that we see life and the way that other people see life as well, it would help obviously in the way that we interpret our relationships, people in our lives, spouses, friends, siblings, parents, children, and all of those kinds of things. I remember growing up, and I used to think that my parents were a certain way, and I just used to wonder, why are they like this and why are they like that? But growing up and becoming an adult, I have realized that their perception or their manner to life and living was also based on what they thought and how they saw life and how they interpreted life. So let me quickly share the two things from the Bible that caught my attention when reading about this. I am using the New Living Translation. So Matthew 16 from verses 5. It says, later, after they crossed to the other side of the lake, the disciples discovered they had forgotten to bring any bread. So they just discovered, oh my God, we don't have bread. And then he says in verse 6, watch out, Jesus warned them, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. At this, they began to argue with each other because they hadn't brought any bread. Why were they thinking about bread? Jesus used yeast. Yeast is used in making bread. So Jesus said to them, watch out because of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. At this, they began to argue with each other because they hadn't brought any bread. Jesus knew what they were saying, so he said, you have so little faith. Why are you arguing with each other about having no bread? Don't you understand even yet? Don't you remember this? The 5,000 I fed with 5 loaves and the basket of leftovers you picked up, or the 4,000 I fed with 7 loaves and the large baskets of leftovers you picked up? Why can't you understand that I'm not talking about bread? So again, I say, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Then at last they understood that he wasn't speaking about the yeast in bread, but about the deceptive teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. So I read this and I was like, interesting. One of the reasons why they couldn't realize that Jesus wasn't referring to bread was because at that particular point in time, bread was on their mind. So one person says, beware of the yeast of this, and immediately their minds go to their present condition, not realizing that he was talking and not about something else entirely. And if Jesus wasn't someone who was perceptive and observant to realize that these guys have missed the point of this conversation, they're thinking about bread, meanwhile I'm thinking about Pharisees and Sadducees, they would have lost the entire plot and the lesson in that completely. And how many times do we have miscommunication in our interactions or engagements with one another? Because at the time that you are having a conversation, one person's mind is thinking about this, your mind is thinking about something else, and then the person says this, and then your mind goes to something else entirely. And you guys leave each other, you are thinking this, the person is thinking something else, and these are little things that cause all sorts of drama. Let me tell you a quick story. So my oldest sister buzzed me some time back, and she sent me a message that, oh, please help me send this thing to your friend. So I responded to her saying, oh, maybe you should send it to the person instead. Now, when she said your friend, a certain person came to my mind. And that certain person came to my mind. She just said your friend. She didn't put the name of the friend. That certain person came to my mind because I knew that she had had an interaction with that person. And maybe that was the last person that I knew, at least the last most recent person that I knew she had had an interaction with. So automatically, my mind went to that person. Now, fast forward to a couple of days later, she then sends me the message to say, so she didn't see that message that I sent her till a couple of days later. And so when she saw it, she then said, okay, you know what? Remind me of this friend's name so that she could check the friend on her phone. So I then say the name of the friend I thought she was talking about, and she said, oh no, that's not the person I'm talking about. So I'm like, so who are you referring to? And she says, this other person. So by the time she described the person, I remembered. But that is just the power of miscommunication right there, and how our minds shape how we interpret life and what we see. And so she asked me, why did your mind go to that person? I said, well, just because that's the last person that I know that you met, that that is, sort of like my friend. So, and I didn't bother to clarify because she just said your friend. So it wasn't until she was being specific to say, okay, remind me the name of the friend. And I remember ending that conversation that day and thinking to myself, miscommunication is such a powerful thing. And it's such a powerful thing many times because our minds make associations in different ways, just like it happened in this story. Some people are having an argument about bread or a conversation about bread. Somebody else is talking about yeast. The yeast at that point in time is not related to the bread you're thinking about, but because you're already thinking about bread, you just associate it to yeast, and that is how we can just miss an entire plot. It can be quite a scary thing. So let me go to the second verse that brought this analogy to mind. This was actually the first verse that I'd read that sowed the seed of how our minds shape our lives and how we see or perceive or understand things. So this is Exodus 32 from verses 17. Now, before this, Moses had gone up to the mountain. He had spent 40 days with God. Joshua had gone up with him but didn't get where Moses was, but Joshua was with him on the mountain as well. The Israelites were waiting down below. They hadn't seen this Moses. They reached out to Aaron and said, please, this man of God is as if we don't know what has happened to him on the mountain. You know what? Make a gold, do something. We need a God. We need something to serve. Aaron says, fantastic, give me your jewelry. Next thing, a golden calf comes out and they start to worship this golden calf. Now, at this point in time, I'm just giving you a backstory, but you should go and read it yourself. At this point in time, God says, Moses, there's something going on. Your people have started worshiping. In fact, there are so many things in that story, but that's not the lesson for today. Your people have started worshiping something else. Please go back down. So Moses and Joshua begin the descent back down. Now, when they get to verse 17, it says, when Joshua heard the boisterous noise of the people shouting below them. So there was a lot of noise. It was almost like a feasting. They were sacrificing to this God, this golden calf that Aaron had made. He says, when Joshua heard the boisterous noise of the people shouting below them, he exclaimed to Moses, it sounds like war in a camp. So Joshua heard the noise, he heard war. But Moses replied, no, it's not a shout of victory nor the wailing of defeat. I hear the sound of a celebration. One person hears war, another person hears celebration. So I wondered to myself, why did Joshua hear war? And I got the answer in Exodus chapter 17. Joshua was a fighter. Joshua was a man of war. How do I know that? Because in Exodus chapter 17, remember that Moses had brought the Israelites out of Egypt. They had done the Red Sea. They had gone past the bitter waters. This was the first time ever they would have to experience anything when they had to fight against another set of people. And this was because the Amalekites attacked them. So in Exodus chapter 17 from verses 8, it says, while the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalekites attacked them. Moses commanded Joshua. There were many Israelites, thousands of people, and this is the first time Joshua was mentioned in all of this. Moses commanded Joshua. So Joshua was a man of war, and he told Joshua, choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us tomorrow. So because Joshua was a man of war, the way that his mind was configured, he heard noise, immediately he thought war. Meanwhile, they were not at war. How many times have we heard things that people have told us, or we've heard from other people, or you just hear, just like Joshua, you hear noise. But the interpretation of what you heard is based on the configuration of your mind and your person. And you have just heard wrong, or you have just interpreted wrong. And based on that interpretation, sometimes it's easy to make a wrong decision. The way that we see life and the way that we perceive life determines how we interpret every single thing that comes into us, which is why it needs to be a daily prayer. That God should purify our minds and our hearts, because it's just a normal thing. The way that you are is the way that you are. And except you come to the point where you realize that the way that you are might not necessarily be the way that life is, and the way that other people are might not be the way that you are. That's a lot of R. But do you understand what I'm saying? Then it would help the way that we communicate, the way that we interpret, the way that we relate with one another. Let me give a practical example. If you know that the way that someone that came from, maybe for example, a dysfunctional home, an abused home, or just has emotional, issues and all of that, is different from the way that a person that came from a home where mother and father intact, love intact, everything intact would think. So you might have someone that you're showing love to, the way your love language is, showing love, being all expressive and all of that. To that person, they would interpret your behavior as maybe you want something from them, because they are only used to people showing love when people want something from them. So you are there being your loving, boisterous, I love you self, and you are giving it to this person who is reading it as, she wants something again. He wants something again. What does he want this time? Whenever people show love, it's because they want something. You are thinking, oh my God, I love you. I'm just showing you love. I'm just pouring love into you. All of that. You guys are reading two different things from that. And this affects complete communication. This person that you're showing love to that thinks you're being manipulative is going to respond to you in a different way. So the person might be shutting down. And then you that you're pouring out love and the person is shutting down, you're wondering, but why is this person shutting down? What is wrong with this person? See me giving all of my love. See me giving all of my life. See me giving all of my time. See me giving all of my attention. And he's just shutting down. In fact, you have a problem. The other person is thinking, oh, he's manipulative. Oh, he just wants something. Oh, why? Because of the way we see life. So it's important that when we are thinking about how we see life, you need to understand your own filters. You need to understand your configuration. You need to understand your person. It's this thing I'm saying is a daily work. It's a continuous work. It's something that you keep working on yourself day by day. If you interpret something wrongly and you feel, you met a dead wall, sometimes ask yourself, okay, did I get that right? Did I get that wrong? I mean, that conversation with my sister, when we finished it was just so eye-opening for me. And maybe this is why I'm also thinking along these lines, because I just thought to myself, see how we just miscommunicated. And this took a couple of days. So it was even too late, because by the time she then told me, let me reach out to this person, what she wanted to get the person to see had already almost, the whole thing, it was already over. Nothing could have been done. And I thought to myself, this is how sometimes people miss opportunities based on all of these different mirrors and different filters that we are using to see life and to view life. And as you're thinking about yourself as well, you need to put yourself in the position of the next person. How does this person see life? How does this person view life? You might have a friend who comes from a family where they are just very free. They are just very okay. They are very extroverted-ish. They're very this, they're very that. You come from a family where you've grown up to learn to be very introverted, just very in your space. And you and that friend go out and you're just thinking, why is this person so bubbly? Why is this person just trying to show herself? Why she's not trying to show herself? That's just how she is. But you are misinterpreting that action wrongly, because to you, when people are like that, you think that they just want to be the life of the room. They just want to be the life of the party. What is even wrong with her? Anywhere that we go, she's the one. That's just how she is. Now, that person might be looking at you thinking, but what's wrong with her? You go somewhere, she's just quiet. She's just timid. She's just shy. She's not even a confident person. She's not this. That's not necessarily, doesn't mean your behavior doesn't necessarily mean that's how you are. You've just learned to be gentle. But because you are both interpreting your actions based on one another's filters, you are getting a completely different meaning from what you both are doing. It is so interesting. It is so interesting. And when I read these two stories, I just thought, wow, I need to talk about this, because if we learned to assess our filters more, and if we learned to understand every other person based on the fact that they also have filters, I think that the world would be a better place. I think that relationships will be a better place. Whether it's husband and wife, friend and friend, parent and children, children and parents, sibling to sibling, in the workplace. You get to the workplace and there are some people that are just like, why is he so, what's wrong with him? Is it only him? And the other person is looking at you, if you like, it's just such a powerful thing. It's just such a powerful thing. And I just thought to share this today, because really, many times it might just be that the frustrations that we're having, especially, and this really is about relationships or just in the way that we interpret life. See, we miss out many opportunities sometimes just because we are not reading things right. It is so important. Which is what was almost happening to the disciples here. They are talking about yeast in Pharisees and Sadducees, because he had just finished a conversation with the Pharisees and Sadducees, like I said, really from Matthew 16:1. Meanwhile, you are thinking about bread, because right then what is paining you is bread. So someone comes and says something else that means something else entirely, an opportunity that would, transform your life. But because your present condition, the one that is paining you, is something else, you read that thing, Lord help us. At this point, let me finish this video. I hope this has been helpful to you. How do you see life? One takeaway that you need to do in this video, just go back and examine your filters. examine your configuration. It's such a powerful example. Examine how you were raised. Examine your background. Examine what they taught you in school. The reason why some of us don't know maths is because you had a math teacher that made the math look as if he was up in the heavenlies. Meanwhile, for some other people, it's just somebody that taught them as easy as it's just A and B. That is sometimes it's as simple as that. Examine why you think some things are difficult, why you think some things are easy. Look at somebody else that maybe you've been having issues with. Think about the person. Think about their background. Think about where they are coming from and choose to see them differently based on a new understanding of the filter of their lives. I'm telling you, this is one thing that will help people live. You see, you will live peaceful. You will live strife-free. Like, there are some people that give you attitude. You know that it's not their fault. That's how they are. You'll be all right. Strife. No, that's how she is. You'll just be okay. There are some people that you know what? That's how he is. What are your filters? What are other people's filters? How do you see life? I have come to the end of this video. I hope that this has been beneficial to you. I thought it was quite interesting. And when you read the Bible, right, just enjoy it. But much more than enjoy it, understand what it is, and sometimes just drop the Bible and analyze how it applies to everyday life and living. The Bible is such a powerful transformational tool. But once again, before this video becomes an epistle, I am going to end it here. I want to thank you for watching. Leave your comments on what you think about this and maybe your experiences in this as well. I want us to really, think about these things. I'd like to hear what you think. Maybe you've even been someone that you've come to realize this, you've made some mistakes, or because of it as well, you've also even moved on in life. Somebody is watching this right now and you've had an experience with your boss, and the reason why you are being frustrated is because you are not understanding the filter of that boss. And all you need to do now is flip the switch. Understand the filter of that boss, understand the perspective to which that boss sees life, and all your frustrations will be over. I'm telling you. I am telling you. It's a powerful thing. And you'll come back and literally testify. And I'm serious, that things changed. Understand the filters of the people you work with. Very powerful. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, and together let us just continue to learn from our journey of life and living. We learn so that we can do better. We learn so that we can live better. We learn so that we can grow and so that we can soar. Until the next time. Bye.